We begin tonight right here in New York, where leaders from around the world gathered at the United Nations for the start of the General Assembly. Today, President Trump visiting Dayton, Ohio, and El Paso, Texas, the site of two mass shootings over the weekend. There are actually so many hands-free options, but that doesn't seem to be working. Now, are Bluetooth calls or GPS systems actually too distracting? I'm Arielle Hixson. Court today for two suspects accused in a deadly shooting in Copiague earlier this week. I'm here in Angkor Wat, the largest religious monument in the world. I'm here in London, England. I'm here in Battambang, Cambodia. Before walking to the site, I suit up for protection. Then we make our way to an area getting cleared. So crazy finding, the CMAC miners have actually found a landmine and a UXO right there. So I just hit about 76 miles per hour on this electric motorcycle. Here in the E-Village, you can try amazing new inventions like this. And I'm telling you now, I might have to get a motorcycle myself. Imagine taking a dip between flights at this infinity rooftop pool with panoramic views of JFK. Humpback whale was spotted just over there in that area. Oh, you know what? It's actually coming over to this side. Every 5 minutes, we seem to be moving just to catch these guys. A very exciting day today in New York as 1 million people gather to support the U.S. women's soccer team. This is a huge role. How did you prepare to play this iconic character? Did you meet with Gary?
He's seen the film, so I'm glad that we're still friends.
Excellent. So he liked your performance, I'm guessing.
Well enough.
And I'd absolutely say this is one of the most confusing cases that the American people have seen this year.
You know, what's his connection to the Kremlin?
Yes, well, he is a lawyer and a political activist that is very well known in Russia for being one of the top figureheads of this movement against Vladimir Putin. And yesterday he met with Angela Merkel, today Emmanuel Macron, but Boris Johnson doesn't seem to be getting what he wants, does he?
No, he does not.
Correspondent Arielle Hixson here now with more. Arielle?
Yes, Eric, those numbers are startling. The world's second largest Ebola outbreak has now passed 3,000 cases and 2,000 deaths since August of last year. What is the weirdest or strangest thing that you have recycled?
So I personally love the grosser the better.
Okay. What would you say is the most tough aspect of being a young trans teen in this day and age?
The fact that society isn't fully supportive of us.
To discuss, let's bring in Betsy Rosenberg, an environmental reporter and climate commentator. Welcome, Betsy.
Thank you. Great to be here.
Yes, well, now it was a big day for climate change, huge day. What was the big impact here, if there was any?
Well, not enough, of course, but there is something in the air that's different. You know, I've been covering this beat for about 20 years, and this is different.
And with Greta and with that powerful speech that she had, they're very passionate. I mean, she started off with saying, how dare you? She really did have a point there where it's the youth who are really taking a big step here. And you mentioned, of course, these big powers who aren't doing much. What can they do going forward to really get to at least the level of young people today?
We have to elect somebody who understands that science is real. That's the first thing. So it's about how we vote.
There's so many factors here. There's so many protests that are happening between today and Friday. I mean, will these still have the same impact, people walking out?
I think they have to. You cannot ignore 250,000 people.
And that is an excellent report. Thank you so much, Betsy Rosenberg. You can hear the chanting happening right now. It's very energetic. Now, these demonstrations are happening across the country, pretty much demanding that the Attorney General release the report to Congress. Now, critics of President Trump have said that this report could have something suspicious in it, and because the Attorney General missed the April 2nd deadline, people are getting increasingly wary.
This is an outrage that these guys are withholding this document.
Here in New York, people are pretty much communicating that the American people have a right to the report and that secrecy is not okay. Now, we'll see in the upcoming days if the government has any response to these mass protests and if the Attorney General decides to change his ways. Oh, it is steaming up right now as we speak. I mean, in the subway, it can get about 20 degrees hotter than it is outside. But in a global perspective, hot temperatures are predicted from Oklahoma to New England. About 15 million people will be affected. This is the thing about the heat. It's all sunny. It's beautiful outside. Some people want to go outside in the sun. Stay away from that. They say avoid the sun, avoid the beaches if possible, stay inside, drink lots of water. Everyone's going to be inside with that AC, and that could lead to a blackout. Now, a blackout with soaring hot temperatures, not a lot of fun. Jeffrey Epstein was found unresponsive in his cell around 6:30 a.m. Saturday morning in this facility behind me, the Metropolitan Corrections Center. Now, some details around his suicide. He was not on suicide watch when they found him, but he was on suicide watch about 2 weeks before and should have been checked on every 30 minutes. Another detail is that his cellmate was removed the day before his suicide. So there's a lot of criticism as to how this facility handled this situation. Now, this may not change the investigation into his misconduct, but it will change the way that victims approach this. Many victims were looking for some type of solace. Instead, more victims may actually come forward because they will be less intimidated by the fact that he is no longer here and maybe even more honest about these abuse allegations. Some attorneys also suspect that some of these victims will file a civil suit case against his estate. Here in New York, I'm Arielle Hixson for I-24 News. The 2020 election is right around the corner, and sometimes it's a little tough to keep track of who's running. So I talked to a few people on the street to see just what they thought about the Democratic 2020 candidates. What do you think about this guy? Do you know his name?
Nope.
Do you know that he's a presidential candidate?
Nope.
I don't know him.
You don't know him?
No, who is he?
That is a great question. And do you know his exact name?
Of course, well, I know Bernie. Yeah.
We all know Biden. So.
Okay, yeah, all right.
Yeah.
Marianne Williamson?
What do you think of this candidate right here?
Well, I don't know his name, but I saw him in the debate.
That might be like one of those guys like Hickenlooper or something like that.
You know, there's a couple of guys that tend to get a little muddy.
Yeah, there's a bunch of guys that look like that. They're all like middle-aged white guys. They all look the same to me.
Yeah, this is George Clooney. Yeah, I know. Yeah.
Is he running for president?
Yeah.
Of course, good. I think it'd be a great VP candidate.
How about this one?
Amy Klobuchar from Minnesota.
No, that's not the AOC. She's from Hawaii?
Hawaii, she could be. She could be a congresswoman from Hawaii, or she could possibly not even be running.
Oh, yeah. Again, another interesting candidate.
I think she's better than the guy we have in office right now.
Excellent. And what's her name?
I don't know. As long as it's not the guy who we have now, I'm pretty happy. So.
As a candidate.
Oh, he's not the former governor of Colorado?
He looks, I don't think he's running, but he looks like a couple of the guys who are running. Like, he looks like the Seth Moulton guy from Massachusetts. I think that's his name.
One thing's for sure, these will be some debates to watch. Arielle Hixson, I-24 News. In the concrete jungle, a park is the closest you'll get to nature. But believe it or not, just a few miles away, these gentle giants are swimming by.
Like, when you're in the city, you don't really expect anything like a whale to happen, but then when you're here, it happens so close. It's really cool.
In the past 10 years, the population of humpback whales have grown exponentially. 272 were spotted in the New York area last year alone, a big jump from 2011 when there were only 5 sightings. So I'm taking that cruise here in Breezy Point, Brooklyn to see if we can spot some of those whales making their way along the East Coast. Pulling out to sea, everyone's eyes were glued to the water.
It's always great to see the wildlife come back in New York City.
Searching for any sign a whale might be near. I've seen a couple of little splashes here and there. I keep getting excited.
Well, no, that's an excellent observation. We also have Atlantic sturgeon in the area.
Many feared the guests of honor wouldn't make an appearance, but after a few hours, the gentle giants finally surfaced. A humpback whale was spotted just over there in that area. Oh, you know what? It's actually coming over to this side. The whole thing with whale watching is that you have to be quick. But every 5 minutes we seem to be moving just to catch these guys. For years, humpback whales were threatened by fishing nets and polluted waters. Many feared for their extinction. But clearer waters have made the New York area a popular hotspot for the once endangered species.
In previous years, they would bypass our area, going to other well-known feeding grounds further north. But in the past 10 to 12 years or so, they have been starting to recognize the Western New York bite as a source for food as well.
Towards the end of the trip, viewers were shocked by what they'd seen.
I never realized how big they were.
Something we want to see more of. The water's clean. It's all a good sign. So keep them coming. And it's great for tourism here in New York. It's another exciting thing to do.
After this journey, once mysterious creatures of the sea are now simply called New Yorkers. Arielle Hixson, I-24 News. From Germany to Sweden to Spain, students across the world are walking out of their classrooms.
I think we're all here because there's only one Earth and we're destroying it.
But they're not doing it just to skip school. They're doing it to prove an environmental point.
When we disrupt a system that's put in place, we get more attention from leaders.
The students worldwide bringing attention to a threat they believe is growing by the minute: climate change.
Last year, climate change was not on a lot of people's political radars, and so I think that that's really the main goal of today and actions like this, to show that this is a big deal and we really care about it. Here at Columbia University, students say they've often been dismissed about their thoughts on climate change, but now they're saying that they've experienced the impact of climate change firsthand, and now more than ever is the time to get their voices heard.
All the actions that students are taking are telling our leaders that students, the people who are going to be voting for them in the future, do not agree with the policies that they have currently. If they want to stay in power, they're going to have to change that and work on our behalf.
Over 1,000 marches were planned in 106 countries. It comes on the heels of recent reports claiming that 2018 was the warmest year on record, and traumatic natural disasters like the California forest fires are examined by scientists as environmental casualties.
Climate change is something that really frightens me, and this is a big momentum and a big impetus towards fighting that.
Although some world leaders like British Prime Minister Theresa May have been critical of climate strikes in the past, students all over the globe continue to fight for the planet they call home.
Climate change is not a partisan issue. We're all stuck on this planet together. So it is a way of opening up the conversation and making change faster and more efficient.
Arielle Hixson, I-24 News.